Hello and welcome to the Tough Girl podcast, which is all about motivating and inspiring you. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. Today, I'm delighted we're going to be speaking to the internationally renowned survival consultant, Megan Hine. Megan is also the author of the book, Mind of a Survivor. Meg has a vast wealth of experience and knowledge gained from leading hundreds of ventures across the globe. And during this podcast, she's going to share more about her life, how she got into this career, and also provide some top tips and advice for you. Hi, Megan.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure. Now, whereabouts have you been recently, or have you been off somewhere exciting in the world?
Well, I've actually just finished filming in North Wales, which for me is actually quite exciting because I don't actually get to work in the UK very often. Yes, we've just finished a quick shoot out here actually with a Welsh celebrity. So yeah, that should be coming out early next year. It's hilarious. It's going to be brilliant.
Oh my God, I love it. It's so nice for you to actually be close to home instead of sort of, all over the world in some of these incredible places that you visit. Do you know what would be amazing is I always wanted to take my guests back to almost the start. So, just try and find out a little bit more about you and what your life was like growing up. Were you from an adventurous family? Were you in the city? Were you living in the country? Did you have brothers and sisters? What was it like for you?
So I'm the oldest of four. I've got a brother and two sisters who are all younger than me, and we're all really different. And we had quite an adventurous upbringing, I suppose, until the age of about 13. TV wasn't a part of my life. We were encouraged not to watch it. It was a very occasional treat. Maybe my dad, 'cause my dad was a teacher, and he'd sometimes bring back one of the old tape recorder players. What are they called? I can't even remember what they're called anymore. Is it VHR?
VHS.
VHS. There you go. Yeah. It seems like such a long time ago. But he'd occasionally bring one of those home from work, and we'd get to choose a film to watch. And for some reason, my sister was the one who always ended up getting to choose it, and it'd be like My Fair Lady or something like that. But the rest of the time we were spent outside. We were encouraged to be outside as much as possible. All our family holidays. My dad was a geologist, so he loved looking at rocks and dragging us up mountains, which I got to do from a very young age with him. And I think the first time I went up Snowdon was when I was about 3 months old. I went up and I started walking at 6 months, and must have driven my parents absolutely nuts, like sort of stuck in, I'd want to get out of the rucksack and walk everywhere, and it must have been so slow for them. So my childhood was very much spent sort of running around in the mountains with my parents and my family. And then as I went through school and things, I found it very restricting. Being at school, there was okay at academia and sport and music and things. I always felt very sort of restricted and stuck within four walls. And it wasn't until I kind of sort of accidentally found mountain biking and then the military cadets, where I was able to participate in lots of adventurous training, like winter climbing in Scotland and whitewater kayaking and things, that I really found my place, and I found out who I was and what I wanted to do.
What age did you find your place? What age did you come across the mountain biking and the military cadets?
The mountain biking I found at about 10. Although we obviously had these sort of family holidays, which were into the mountains and things, I didn't know that there was a career outside academia. My parents had both worked really, really hard to get themselves from sort of quite rough upbringings, I suppose, into my dad managed to put himself through school on various scholarships and grants and things, and then through Oxford University on lots of scholarships. And I think being the oldest, it was kind of assumed that I'd be following in their footsteps. And I just found it very, very hard to actually sit down. I'd find myself sort of in lessons staring out of the window at the Malvern Hills, which is where I grew up, and just dreaming of being out there or running around in the mountains in North Wales. Sort of cycling home from school one day on my dad's bike, I wondered if I could cycle along the Malvern Hills. And from then on, every day after school, I'd go out and I'd push myself that little bit further, a little bit faster, just to see what I was capable of. And I suddenly found that's what really gave me like a real kick and made me feel alive, was pushing my limits and discovering just how strong, like mentally and physically, I was.
Oh, how fantastic. And joining the military cadets as well. I mean, some of the experiences you must have been on. Were there other girls your age doing that as well?
No, not really. I think I was so fortunate, so lucky in the terms of like when I was part of the sort of the military cadets, in that all the adventurous training, there was very rarely any other girls on the trips. And if you're doing school trips or organized trips with children, you need to have female cover if you've got girls in the group. But I am so grateful to both my parents and to the people who are running the cadets, in the fact that they were both parties were happy with me going without female cover, because if they just insisted on that, I wouldn't have been able to have these opportunities. And we'd be up in Scotland for in the winter, sort of hiking through or winter climbing and staying in these bothies, and I'd just be like bunking down with all the boys. I didn't really see it as an issue. I never really questioned it. To me, it wasn't about gender. It was just doing what I loved doing. And to be honest, I never really thought about the fact that I was the only girl. I suppose it's only been sort of more recently that it's become like sort of a bigger thing in the press and, bigger thing on social media, that I've really sort of started thinking about that and thinking about the amazing opportunities that I had like this.
I mean, what sort of happened next? I mean, was there any pressure from your family about going down the academic route, or did you know that you wanted to lead this life of adventure? What happened after you finished school?
So I didn't know that there was that you could do careers outside of academics. It was only through the military cadets that I realised that actually maybe you could go into the military, and that was quite an adventurous lifestyle. So I'd kind of planned, as I was leaving school, I'd kind of planned to take a year out and to go to New Zealand, which was like somewhere that I'd been given a book when I was about 6 or 7, that was called Land of the Long White Cloud. And it was just this picture book of Maori culture, this amazing pictures that that was something about them just really triggered something in me that was like, ever since that age, I wanted to go to New Zealand. So I took a gap year to go off to New Zealand, and actually ended up working in an outdoor centre out there. But through that, I kind of planned that I'd either come back into do military, or I'd got a place to read marine biology. And it wasn't until I was away that I actually realised, that you could actually work in the outdoor industry, and that you could become, a guide or a leader, and you could take expeditions and instructing climbing and things. And that for me was like a real turning point, that actually this is where I want to be.
What happened after New Zealand? I mean, was it hard to leave New Zealand and head back to the UK?
Yeah, it was so hard. It was like I really wanted to stay out there. A couple of the guys that I was working with I was working in an outdoor centre out there that I kind of came into quite kind of by accident. A couple of these guys were actually just about to start a degree in outdoor education out in New Zealand, and I was so desperate to stay out and join them. New Zealand's just one massive playground. It's beautiful, and I wanted to stay, but it was the overseas tuition fees were a little bit too much. So I actually looked for a similar course in the UK, which I found, and I came back to the UK and actually carried out a degree in outdoor education. So I spent my first and third years in the UK, and then my second year I actually did an Erasmus exchange out to the Czech Republic, which was quite eye-opening as well. But during that stayed time, I picked up my outdoor qualifications. So that was one of the ways that I managed to fund my way through university, was actually taking people out into the mountains as well.
Oh, do you know, it's absolutely fascinating just hearing you share more about your career. I mean, you have travelled all over the world and visited so many different communities and been on so many expeditions. Can you remember back to what sort of like your first major expedition was?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I suppose because when I knew that I wanted to sort of work in the outdoor industry, and as a climbing instructor, or as sort of the basic qualifications that I'd picked up early on, like my mountain leadership and things. Yeah, and I realised, I wanted to travel. I hadn't had the opportunity when I was a child. And I wanted to travel to these amazing countries, but I knew that as a climbing instructor, or sort of taking people out in mountains, it doesn't pay very well, and I was never going to be able to afford to do those trips for myself. So the only way that I could actually get to do those trips was to actually turn it into a career path, which is like, I still can't believe that I've actually done it. But yeah, so the first expedition that I worked on, and I worked on as assistant leader, was for a survival bushcraft company. And it was out to Namibia, and it was their first expedition that they'd run. So I went out with my boss, and we set up, this amazing expedition out in Namibia where we spent a couple of weeks with the San bushmen in their village, sort of learning some of their skills and going out with them and trapping and tracking and hunting. Then we took one of their families up into sort of a more mountainous region and actually put these skills that we'd learnt into practice out in the mountains. And that was 2 months that I was spent out there on this just incredible expedition, working with these native peoples. And I was just like, wow, this is what I want to do. This is just incredible.
From all the different sort of areas that you've been in, from the jungles in Borneo to the Arctic to spending time in Africa, do you have a preferred sort of expedition area, or do I mean area? I always want to say like temperature.
Like environment, yeah. I suppose I started off with the mountaineering side of things. When I first started in my career in the outdoors, I assumed that I was going to go down the mountaineering route, which is where I always felt at home. And I felt that for me was like sort of where I first started pushing my boundaries and exploring and, making friends and, sort of finding like-minded people in this like incredible sort of mountaineering community. So for me, that was where I assumed that I was going to go. And then I started leading expeditions and I started working in the TV industry. And suddenly, I was being sent off to jungles and deserts. But I think I had the amazing opportunity in like all of the sort of the first expeditions that I led or assisted on. I was alongside, experts in their field. So jungle warfare instructors from the SAS, through to sort of tracking guides in Africa and things. So I just had like the most incredible mentors, I suppose, that allowed me to pick up all these incredible knowledge and sort of asking all these questions. So I think for me, like my favorite environments are still mountain and cold weather environments. The jungle, I have like this love-hate relationship. It is so bloody miserable. Like everything's out to kind of bite you or sting you and scratch you. And that humidity as well. But I think that's what I love about it. It's overcoming, for me in that environment, it's overcoming myself more than sort of the environment, and making the most of it. And that I love that environment.
So when you talk about sort of overcoming myself or yourself, can you think back to a situation where you really had to overcome some sort of personal challenge, whether that was mental or physical?
I experience these things like on an almost daily basis when I'm working. Often it's dealing with maybe, sort of when I'm working behind the scenes on TV shows, I have quite a unique position in the fact that at the end of the day, what I say has to go, in terms of like safety. So if I'm making a call on the ground about a safety concern I might have, I'm up against producers, executives, like exec producers, maybe even like the channel bosses themselves. And, that can be quite daunting. You're this tiny little person and you start second guessing yourself and things. You really have to have faith in your experience and, your confidence in your ability to judge, down to sort of things that happen on a, sort of relatively, I suppose, happens quite a bit really. And like sort of the situations that I end up in, I suppose statistically the amount of that I'm traveling, I am going to run into difficulties at times. A couple of months ago in Kenya, I got caught in the crossfire between a couple of tribes and some local rangers, like right in the middle. Last year in Mexico, ended up sort of being hunted by a drug cartel because we happened to be using it was a 4x4 track through the mountains, and we happened to be up there filming and have just pulled off the side of the track there and bivvying out overnight. And this drug cartel came through. And obviously they don't want to be found. They don't want anyone to know that they're using these routes. So they tend to wipe out anybody that gets in their way so that nobody's letting on and things. So like we had these guys like hunting us in the night. That was quite exciting with sort of AK-47s.
Oh, I'm sorry, my mouth is just open. So you're being chased by a drug cartel in Mexico with AK-47s, and it's quite exciting.
Yeah, I think like it's weird because I always get asked because there's another one I had. I think I write about it in my book as well. It's like as a time in an opium field in Thailand as well. We stumbled across that and sort of a similar experience. But I actually found it really hard when I was writing my book. I actually found it quite hard to remember the stories to put in. And that was one of the questions that I kept asking myself, like, why am I really struggling to remember these stories? And I think for me, it's like what I do, because those are quite sort of high stress situations. And in those situations, I'm responsible for other people, not just myself, in that I've had to develop a coping mechanism to be able to deal with that situation. So what I tend to do is automatically now is to put my emotions, like potentially overwhelming emotions like fear and anxiety, into a box, and remove it from the situation. And, I shut the lid on that box and those emotions are gone. So I find this like when I'm giving talks and people always ask me, like, what's the most like terrifying situation that you've been in? And it's like, actually probably standing here in front of you talking, because like all those other emotions, I don't really remember, these other situations with much emotion. I don't know if that makes any sense at all.
Oh, completely. I mean, when I was out on the Appalachian Trail, I planned for the physical and the mental. But one of the things that I struggled with towards the end was my emotions, because I was just crying all the time. I just couldn't keep them in check. And I never expected to be that emotional. And it's, especially for you being in these high stress situations and, you're making the decisions and, what you say has to go. I mean, especially with regards to safety and, safety aspects. But when you're coming up against producers and executives and channel bosses and you're saying these things, are you getting a lot of pushback? I mean, are there times when they're not listening to you? And I don't know whether that's because of a gender thing. Is it, women? Because while there are lots of women doing what you're doing, I sort of don't think there are. I mean, has that happened, or how do you overcome that?
So I don't actually know of any other women that do the job I do. But then, to be honest, I don't know very many men either that do the job that I do. My partner Stani, who I'm very fortunate to work with a lot, another maybe 3 or 4 other guys that are doing the same job. So when you look at it, actually, the fact that one of them's a woman is actually quite cool. But yeah, I think like with the pushback on the decision making, yes, I get it. But then so does my partner Stani. So do some of the other guys that I work with. You're always going to get that because typically, and obviously this is a generalization, people who work in TV tend to be very creative people, and they might have they've developed these amazing ideas, which aren't necessarily transferable into reality. But part of my job is to, come up with an alternative. So, yes, there's quite a few times that I have to say no. And yes, it might involve a bit of an argument, but I have to say no. But then I always have a backup plan. So, no, you can't do this, but have you thought about this? This would work. And I think that's what's really key, is then being able to think outside the box and actually come up with other options for them.
I'm even just thinking, if I was like a producer on the TV thing and, we're being chased by the drug cartel, part of me would also probably be thinking, this is going to make awesome TV.
Oh, yes. These are things. Yeah. So like, actually we had, it was actually that's the same trip. Actually, we were out in Mexico. We spent 3 months out in Mexico, and one of the challenge we were doing, we were putting like a 4x4 through a jungle environment to see if we could actually drive this vehicle through the jungle. And before we'd gone in there, it was a protected area we were going into, the local government agency had said, yes, you can drive through it, but don't take out any trees that are kind of bigger than your forearm in sort of width and diameter. We had a presenter on that one that wasn't that great at following instruction. And it was just driving this vehicle. And like, it was like something, because I wasn't next to the filming at that moment. I was, I can't remember, I was doing something slightly further away, and I looked up and it was like watching like, Armageddon or something, like, where the monsters come through the trees, and it's like all these trees are like falling down. You can't see the car, you can just see these trees. And I'm like, oh no, this is not good. And it's like our local fixer. So whenever we work in foreign countries, particularly in sort of politically unstable ones, we always have what we call an in-country fixer, who is somebody who is usually quite connected to the government, or kind of often knows who to pay off in certain situations. And that person, makes stuff happen. And they were just like, right, you guys need to get out of here right now. And this is when like the exec producer on this one was just like, no, this is amazing TV. This is great. We need to stay here and film it. And, we've got this fixer who's starting to get really, really nervous, which is never a good sign. Just saying, no, you need to leave right now. Like the armed police will come in, and like these police out in like this area of Mexico, they're masked. You never see their faces, and they don't ask questions. And they drive like these like little mini tanks around with sort of like heavy weaponry on them. So it's like, right, we really need to get out of here. So, situations like that, when you're up against somebody who's obviously so focused on their reality, which is not necessarily the reality, is always an interesting challenge.
Oh, absolutely. You spent a lot of time with local and Indigenous communities. Which community have you been most surprised to connect with?
I think so many cultures, I'm so lucky to be able to work with lots of different cultures as part of sort of like when you're doing like the survival consultancy, is actually going out first and like spending time with native peoples and, like trying to sort of see their skills and things. So it's just an amazing, I can't really think of sort of one tribe that I would sort of, think more of over another. I think what's so amazing is that each of them have got their own set of skills. But what I find so incredibly fascinating is the fact that you can have tribes on different sides of the globe that supposedly have never interacted, but have the same beliefs, or, maybe have the same sort of kind of mythology, star lore as well. The way that they view the stars or the stories behind the stars are so similar. And it's like, well, how has that happened? It's just, that's what I find so fascinating, like the connections between these tribes that have never supposedly ever met.
Where in the world do you enjoy spending the most time? Is it North Wales?
Well, I'm hardly over here. I actually moved back to North Wales about 18 months ago because I'd been living abroad for like 10 years out in the Alps. So it's actually been really nice being back in Wales and sort of rediscovering old haunts and things. And I love coming back. I think I'm at home, like in my free time. I head for the mountains, the Alps. Sort of big snowy peaks and things, and that to me is kind of like, I suppose that's where my heart is.
Your job is very, obviously you've got to be physically fit. How do you maintain your fitness levels? Are you down at the gym? Is it just because of doing what you do every day? You mean, do you what do you do for fitness?
So my job is really physical. Anyway, like when I go out scouting for locations, obviously a lot of the time there isn't a huge amount of budget. So yes, I might have like a 4x4, which allows me to get so far, but a lot of it's done on foot. I tend to like sort of for some areas, I tend to run in and out and, do a lot of climbing and stuff for the job. So my job's really physical. So that keeps like a really good base level of sort of fitness in there. On the shoots as well, it's like, as well as sort of hauling ropes and things, tend to try and build in sort of like yoga sessions, because like last year was like out in China for about 4 months, and I was like every day like literally hauling like about between three of us, we were hauling about 2 kilometers worth of rope. And it's like, it takes its toll on your body. So it's like building in like the yoga and the stretching is so important, like particularly when you're tired. It's like I tend to get a bit lazy with my stretching. So that's really good to have other people around to kind of keep that up. When I'm at home, it's like, I've never seen it as training, but like I love mountain biking, I love climbing and just being outside and moving. So for me, it's like any moment that I've got sort of free that I'm not, sort of working is taken up outside, moving and doing stuff for myself. And I guess that's what makes it easier to keep going, because I've never seen it as training. It's something I love to be doing. So I don't feel like I have to do it. I want to do it.
Yeah. So where did the book come from? How did that develop?
I was so fortunate in that I'd written an article for the Guardian newspaper, I think it was. And off the back of that, I had several literary agents get in touch and ask if I'd like to write a book. And I was like, bloody hell, like I'm just an expedition leader. I'm just like a climbing bum. Like, why would anybody want to read like something that I've written? But I was just like, do you know what? It's an adventure and I love a challenge. Yeah, let's do this. This sounds like it's going to be really fun. And it gave me an opportunity to explore a topic that I'd been thinking about for a long, long time, which was to do with like the psychology of survival and what makes somebody resilient. How come there were several questions that sort of were sort of the center of the book, of sort of my writing and things. And one of them was, when I was younger, I read a lot of the sort of books by explorers, Shackleton, Oates, those books. And their physicality kind of went without saying. There was a lot of stuff about, frostbite and, their physical hardships. But so rarely did they ever talk about the mental aspects and how they overcame sort of what must be absolutely grueling conditions. So that kind of triggered the question of like, well, they're only human. So how are they dealing with the emotions and what are they doing with those emotions? And sort of through my own experiences, I realized that they must be putting those emotions away. So that actually when they wrote the book or they narrated the book to somebody, that they actually didn't really remember those stories with a huge amount of emotion because they dealt with those things. Another question that sort of really sort of got me was like, often in like sort of wilderness survival situations, the people that would walk out that were survivors weren't necessarily the people that society would typically consider a survivor. So women and children there were some amazing stories. But what was it? These people hadn't got any wilderness skills. They'd never really been in the outdoors before, but yet they survived. So what was it about those people? What were the traits that made up, the resilience of these people that made it different to anybody else? And the final thing was, well, actually, what are those traits? And are those traits then transferable into everyday life as well, which I really believe that they are.
I know you've written a whole book on the mind of a survivor. What do you think makes people resilient?
I think that, there's lots of different traits that build that up. And I think the sort of the fundamental thing of this, and this is something that I'm sort of talking to the Scouts about a lot at the moment. I had the fortune to become an ambassador for them, and that's something that they're really, really hot on at the moment, is like the skills for life, which is basically building up sort of resilience for life, which is amazing. And I believe that like resilience comes from exposure to lots of different experiences, particularly at a younger age. I think that it can be learnt later, but it's a lot harder. But as a child in that sort of development phases in the brain, it's really important to expose your children to lots and lots of different experiences where they can kind of find out who they are within safe parameters that you as a parent or as a caregiver can set.
Yeah. When you think back to some of your expeditions, and I know that you shared a few of the challenges with us, if people were taken out of the situation, so no drug lords or cartels coming to get you, in terms of being in a wilderness situation, which wilderness situation, purely because of the environment, has been the most challenging or has been the most scary in terms of, right, how are we going to get out of this?
I think in terms of sort of environment, each environment has got its own hazards. So for me, for like the jungle, in the jungle, you often get flash flooding coming through very, very quickly. So you need to be very, very aware of the environment around you. And it doesn't matter like what environment you're going into. It's like, do your research beforehand. And I think this is really key, because I know that sort of adventure is growing, and there's a reason for that. I think adventure kind of plays to something that's missing in people's everyday lives now. And I think it's brilliant. It's great to encourage other people to get outside. But I think it's really important that, that we equip people with the skills to be able to get outside into whatever environment that they want to go to. And it really isn't that hard to learn the basic sort of foundation skills for this. And so like for the jungle, if you're going out there, like having the appropriate clothing, for you doing the Appalachian Trail, you must have like had the right clothing to do that. And, that makes your experience so much better. If you've got the wrong clothing, it can really sort of be detrimental for your experience. And it's the same in any environment. Up in the out up in the cold environments, you need to be aware of like avalanche dangers. But even people going backcountry skiing now often get caught out more and more. Even in Scotland, actually, like the past couple of years, there's been a lot of avalanche danger and people caught in avalanches. So it's all about doing the research, because each environment's got its own inherent dangers.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just thinking, I wore my clothes. I actually never wanted to see them again in my life because I wore them for 100 days straight. What advice or tips would you have for other, women who would be looking to get access to the industry that you work in?
I think initially it's finding out whether you actually enjoy being outside, because I know from the outside it can look quite glamorous. People only put up the perfect Instagram photos and things, but it's really important, I think, to get outside and find out if you enjoy being out there for yourself, because it's all very well like when it's super sunny weather, but unfortunately, particularly in the UK, it's like, how many days of perfect weather do we actually get? So you need to know that, when it's pissing down with rain and it's howling gale, that actually you're comfortable and you're happy, and you can look after other people in that environment. So get out for yourself, go out with friends. There are plenty of outdoor companies now that qualified trained instructors who've had to start somewhere, so who remember how it was to be a beginner or starting to get into the industry, and they can train the fact there's good strong foundations in getting outside, basic things like navigation, what to wear, what to do if you get lost, all of these basic skills that could actually at some point save your life potentially, and building up a strong foundation with that. There's plenty of apprenticeships that are available with outdoor companies that will train you. And, there's now lots of bushcraft companies and survival companies, or there's like the more adventure sort of water sports or mountaineering that all offer like various apprenticeships. So, look for those apprenticeships, build up your skills, get your own personal skills up to a really good level. Because, if I'm hiring people for a job, whether it be for TV or for expedition leading, it's like I'm looking for people who've got lots and lots of experience. Like qualifications are one thing, go and get lots of qualifications. It's brilliant, but keep building your experience above and beyond that. Because for me, that's what I'm looking for when I'm going to hire somebody.
Yeah. How do you feel about being on the TV now and sort of gaining a certain amount of recognition in your own right?
Honestly, it's really bizarre. It was never my intention. And, if you'd asked me a couple of years ago, I'd have been like, absolutely no way am I interested in doing this. I love my job. I love my job behind the scenes. I love the expeditions I lead, and, I love that I get to work with all these people. I think what changed for me in terms of kind of taking on more of that role is that I think that, like, for me, I want, there is going to be at some point, there will be sort of more female adventurers on TV and things. And I want it to be done properly. I want it to be women who are actually out there already doing amazing things, and there are some incredible women. I don't want us to just be taking somebody like randomly off the street and kind of, selling them as a, as a sort of expeditioner or sort of adventurer. Which was what we've done. I have done this for some male adventurers, that are on TV. We spoon feed them information, but, we can do that for a woman. But why should you when you've actually got really cool women out there doing some amazing stuff? So for me, that was the reason behind agreeing to do certain in front of camera stuff. And, I get asked a lot for doing in front of camera things, but unless it's the right opportunity, I'm just not interested, to be honest.
Absolutely. I mean, you talked about, you headed off to China, you spent 4 months out in China, and I'm sure your expeditions, are quite lengthy in time. When you finish expeditions and you head home, what does your home /work/play life look like for you? I'm now based in North Wales, which is great. And so when I'm back, it's like I've got a dog who is amazing, and she's very much a big part of my home life when I'm back, and she loves running and mountain biking and things with me. So she's an amazing adventure partner, so she comes out with me a lot. It's like when I'm home, it's a case of I just love being at home. I love like
simple meals. We get to have these incredible food like while we're traveling, like, and experience lots of different spices and things. But actually, I'm pretty boring when I'm at home. It's all about like simple, like, vegetables and meat and things. I tend to work with the seasons a lot. So, I'm living on the coast at the moment, so go out and supplement food with fish that we catch, seaweed, shellfish, plants that we gather and things as well while we're out and about. So yeah, I suppose it's kind of like, I love being at home, but yeah, unfortunately I'm not at home very much. So last year I think I was away for about 11 months. I was only at home for about 4 weeks last year.
Oh my goodness, it's just pretty full on, isn't it? Constantly.
Yeah. It's so full, yeah. But do you know what? I love what I do. I love it so much, and yeah, I feel very, very fortunate to be able to do what I do, and I do not take it for granted. It might all fall apart tomorrow, but do you know what? Like, it's been worth it. It's been worth every moment.
In terms of your gear, do you have any top pieces of gear that you absolutely love? And I know that's a massively general question, because obviously it depends on the environment that you're going. But is there something that you always end up taking with you, or something that has saved your life?
I suppose there are a few bits of kit that do come everywhere with me. So like my rucksack, I've got a rucksack that's about 35 litres. It's a Deuter guide pack, and I love it. I love like simple gear. My job's stressful enough without having to worry about random stuff falling off my clothes, or my clothes splitting or getting caught and ripped and broken and stuff. So I love like simplicity when it comes to outdoor gear. And this bag has got like no bells or whistle. Well, it's got a whistle, but it's got no frills on it or anything like that. It's just a simple pack, and it's really hard wearing. And it's been, I don't know what number I'm on now of the same one, but they go to all environments with me. Yeah, I always carry like a couple of different fire making techniques with tools with me. So I usually carry like a fire rod, like a striker, like to be able to create sparks. It tends to be waterproof, which is great. And I usually carry a lighter as well everywhere. So I've always got two methods of being able to make fire, just in case.
What are the future plans that you've got coming up? Or are you having a bit of time off, or is 2018 going to be a crazy year for you?
Well, it looks like at the moment, like the beginning of 2018 is going to be pretty mental. Thing is, like with the industry that I work in, like particularly with the TV stuff, it's all very dynamic in terms of dates and things, and it can be very last minute. Like, for example, I was supposed to have gone off. I've got a job coming up in the States, and I was supposed to have gone off, 3 or 4 days ago, but I'm still here and I'm still waiting. So it's everything's a bit up in the air, and I suppose that's the only real downside of what I do, is that it's very, very hard to make plans and commit to social engagements and things like that. But yeah, no, 2018 looks at the moment like it's going to be totally nuts, sort of all over the world again. But it's great. It's going to be so exciting.
Do you ever get sort of sick and tired of it and think about getting like a normal 9-to-5 job?
I've never had a 9-to-5 job to know what that feels like. I suppose my whole life, I've been working in the outdoor industry since I was a teenager. I don't know any other lifestyle. So, for me, it is a lifestyle. It's not a job. If I started seeing it as a job, and it became a struggle, I'd have to leave. I'd have to find something else, because, you wouldn't be able to keep going. Like some days, like when we're filming, I can be working 18-hour days, and like for months, like on this China job, I was literally running on about 4 hours of sleep a night. You have to enjoy it underneath it all. Even if it's not at that moment, you have to enjoy it to keep going, because it is kind of like be a bit of a sucker for punishment.
Yeah, but I like that though. I like the fact that it's a lifestyle, and you don't almost see it as a job, which is absolutely fantastic.
It totally is, because I think I'm going back to your question on like asking about, for women, other women and girls who might want to get into the outdoor industry. That for me is a really key part of it. It is about the lifestyle. It's a lifestyle choice, particularly if you're working within sort of the outdoor industry as it is at the moment, because it's not particularly well paid. So you have to love what you do. And I would always recommend, actually, and this is something that I don't have, but I would always recommend, if you can, like having a backup plan. So maybe going to university to do a degree in law or whatever it might be first. So you've always got something to step back into, should you get injured, or, should your plans change for the future, because that's something that I don't have, because this is what I've always done.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't even think about that actually if you do get sick or you do get injured, then actually you can't work. And so really, really good advice. In terms of your current goals or things that you want to achieve and do you have a bucket list of adventures or challenges that you'd like to go on?
I've got so many things. I think, you probably find the same thing. The more you talk to people, like the more places open up, like the more possibilities that there are. So it's kind of endless. So there's a trip to Alaska that I really want to do, which is like crossing Alaska by foot with my dog, which is more of a survival trip, kind of putting everything into practice. I had planned to go this year, but my dog unfortunately had some back issues, but she seems to be okay now. So I'm hoping to go. Now looks like it'll either be probably later next year, because the beginning of next year looks mental work-wise. But I think at the moment it's kind of going with the flow and just seeing what comes. I don't really have a path at the moment that I'm kind of following. I'm just kind of like enjoying living in the moment, if that makes any sense.
Oh, no, absolutely. And I think sometimes that can be really difficult to do, though. I definitely fall more into the side of a planner, and I like being organised and know exactly what is happening, when it's happening, and what year I'm going to do that. And it can be difficult when there is almost like no plans. So one quick question is, what's your dog called?
Tug.
Oh, amazing. And how long would it take you and Tug to do this Alaska walk?
So I gave us 3 months, but the reality it'd probably be longer than that. It's not that far really. It's like 1,000 miles, but it's more that I want to do it totally self-supported. So I want to be able to put all the skills that I've learnt over the years into practice. So like hunting and fishing for myself and things. And there will be times, as we go through the environment, that I will need to process. For example, if I'm going over sort of quite a barren area that there's not going to be much game, or potentially wouldn't be able to find any game, is that I then need to process, food before I cross that. So maybe smoking fish and things like that before I actually sort of go through that challenge.
Oh my goodness, wow. I'm just thinking, so there's no stopping off at garages along the way, or little food shops to get some nice food. Wow, that sounds like an incredible challenge. When did you first get Tug?
She's 3 years old now, so I've had her since she was 8 weeks. She came about, I didn't think that my lifestyle was particularly great for having a dog. But I'd happened to be doing some work near a traveller camp, actually near London. And one of the women there approached me to say that her dog had had some puppies, and would I be interested? So I came along to like her trailer and had a look, and there she was. And she was such a cheeky little monkey. Like, I met her first when she was probably she must have been about 5 weeks old, and I had the pick of the litter. There were 7 puppies there, and the rest were all kind of like those like kind of tubby cute little puppies, like kind of walking along and their back legs falling over. And she was so agile even then, and like I could just she'd go running up to these other puppies and yank their tail and then run away. I was like, right, that's the one for me.
Oh, does she come with you? Was she in China with you? Was that possible? Or
she might get eaten in China, but but she comes with me on like she comes with me if I'm working in Europe, and it's not too technical. So if I'm not working with like lots of ropes and sort of one-on-one with people, then she'll come with me. So yeah, she's really well traveled. She's got a passport. She's really well traveled around Europe. I haven't actually flown with her yet, and that's my next challenge, because I'd like to take her to the US with me. So I need to get her a crate and get her used to being in and out of that, so I can fly with her. But she's amazing. It's like, when I run survival courses, she'll just roam around in the forests, and come in when she's ready.
Now, Megan, you do have your own website. Where is the best place for people to find out more information about you?
Through my website, meganhine.com. I'm on Instagram. I think Instagram's my I love Instagram. I love looking at other people's pictures when I'm traveling, like particularly if I'm going through airports and things and I've just come off a really, really long job and my brain is frazzled. I love just like sitting at the airport, like scrolling through Instagram and looking at other people's pictures. So yeah, I'm on Instagram at Megan Hine and on Twitter as well at Meg Hine.
Fantastic. And lots of members of the tribe want to know, where can they get a signed copy of your book?
That's a very good question. At the moment, the best way to do that is to send it. I've got a PO box that I think should be on the website, but I will have a look and see if it's on there. And they can send a copy of my book to the PO box, and I will, if they send a stamped addressed envelope with the book, I can then pop it in the post and send it back once I've signed it. But please do remember that I might not be in the country for a few months, so forgive me for not getting it back to you straight away.
Well, Megan, thank you so much for coming on Tough Girl Podcast and sharing more about your journey of getting into expeditions and some of the, the challenges you faced, especially, God, the drug cartel still gets me. I'm just thinking about that now and the mental side and what you're actually going through. It's absolutely inspirational. So thank you so much for sharing your story. Any other final words of wisdom or words of advice that you have learned from living this lifestyle, going on these expeditions and challenges? I don't know whether that's a motto or a phrase or just how you live your life.
I think it's about the fact that, you are stronger than you believe you are. I always say this. It's like, we are all born with the same potential for resilience and for achievement, and it's what you do with those skills, and it's never too late. It's never too late to overcome fears, to break out of what might be considered as like a stereotypical norm. It's just taking that first step is terrifying, but it's overcoming that. You are far stronger than you believe you are. I see it like on a daily basis in the wilds when I'm working there with people, people achieving what they never thought they would believe. So, don't ever let anybody say you can't do it. It doesn't matter what background you are. The wilderness doesn't care. Like, it transcends gender, faith, background, sex, whatever. Like, just go out there and do what you want to do. It's all about creating your own love for doing what you do.
Oh, absolutely. Megan, thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
Hey tribe, how you doing? I hope you enjoyed that episode with Megan Hine. What an absolute legend. Please do go check out her book as well, Mind of a Survivor. All of the links and everything that you need to know, everything that you've heard from this podcast episode will be available at toughgirlchallenges.com. So please do go check out the website. You can also find links to all of our previous guests. If you are a new listener, I've now interviewed well over 130 women. The first interviews were started back in 2015 on the 4th of August. And every single Tuesday going forward since that date, we've had a new amazing interview with an adventurer, explorer, a triathlete, a swimmer, a mountaineer, you name it. I've interviewed them on the Tough Girl podcast. So there's so much incredible content out there. So please do go back and check it out. Not long to go now until the end of the year, until it will be the 1st of January 2018. Have you got your plans in place? Do you know what your goals are going to be? I'm not talking about New Year's resolutions. I don't want to hear about New Year's resolutions. I want to hear about your goals, your firm goals, your commitment to yourself about what you are going to achieve in 2018. I have one rule for this, and the only rule is that it's got to be something that you are passionate about, something that inspires you, something that motivates you. It doesn't matter what other people think about your goals and your dreams and your ambitions. It's about you. Does your goal excite you? Do you get all pins and needles when you wake up in the morning? Are you raring to go? Are you excited about the weeks ahead? Is it a goal which is going to challenge you, which is going to help you to grow and develop as a person? Is it going to get you out of your comfort zone? This is what I want from you. If you haven't done so already, please do grab a piece of paper, write down your goals, come and share them in the Tough Girl tribe, send me an email, let me know what you're going to achieve in 2018, because it is so important that you start the year off right. And in terms of starting the year off right, we have got an incredible first episode to kickstart 2018. We are going to be speaking to the awesome Beth French from Ocean's 7. Beth has got a phenomenal story, and this is actually a little bit of a special episode because we're going to be doing the normal interview, which will come out on Tuesday at 7 a.m. UK time. And then on the following Thursday, there's an extra bonus episode where Beth answers some quick fire questions. It's quite a quick episode, about 20 minutes or so, but really fun. Lots of great content, lots of advice, lots of tips, and I think you'll all get a lot of benefit from listening to it. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Another date for your diary is the 31st of December, because that is when the final episode of 7 Women, 7 Challenges 2017 will go live. If you are new to the podcast, at the beginning of 2017, we started interviewing 7 women, and every 6 or 7 weeks we spoke to them again, and we found out how they were getting on with their goals, what they were learning as they went on this journey. And there were crazy goals from rowing around Great Britain, from taking this is Rachel taking her family traveling around the world, the slowtravelfamily.com, running your first ultra, Ray running her first ultra, which didn't quite happen, but there was a very good reason why it didn't. Goals got changed. There were problems that needed to be solved. Lessons were learned. And it's a fascinating experience to go through and to listen to these 7 incredible women. This is going to be the episode where we look back over their year and we really delve into, what they've learned, what they're going to be taking forward, how have they developed as a person, and importantly, what's going to be next, what else are they going to be going after. So it's going to be an absolutely fascinating episode, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. And my final plug before I'll let you go is just about becoming a patron. Become a supporter. That it can be your Christmas gift to me. I would love it. That would be very kind of you. But go and check out Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast, and become a regular financial supporter of the Tough Girl Podcast. Help me with my mission to increase the amount of female role models in the media. Help to spread these messages of these incredible women and their stories that do not get put in mainstream media. Help to amplify my voice, help to amplify their voice, help to cause this ripple effect. And you can do that from $5 a month. It makes a huge difference. So think of it as a monthly subscription to the Tough Girl Podcast. And when you do that, you can also come and join the Tough Girl Tribe, which from the 1st of January is going to be exclusive to patrons only. Guys, have a fantastic week. Whatever you are doing, enjoy yourself, have some fun, and I will be with you next Tuesday for another awesome episode of the Tough Girl Podcast. All right, take care, lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.